Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at this 2021 Nissan GT-R. GT-R has been on sale now since the 2009 model year, meaning that this thing is going on 13 years old. It's undergone a few different changes over the years. The most recent update was for the 2017 model year, but that said, they really haven't changed much in over a decade. For 2017, this thing got slightly different bumpers, front and rear. It got a little power bump and it got a new dashboard, but for the most part, this thing has been on sale with very few changes since the 2009 model year, and it has in fact dominated pretty much every year since it was introduced. It has a 3.8 liter twin turbo V6. It makes 565 horsepower and 467 pounds-feet of torque. That is sent to all four wheels via a 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. It's kind of funny to see a 6-speed automatic in an era where everything has moved to 8 or 10 speeds. Anyway though, it seats 4. Technically, it really only seats 2. The back seat is impossibly small. It has a somewhat big trunk, and yeah, let's move on to the tour of the GT-R, and then obviously we're going to take it for a drive. So the GT-R obviously looks fast. Here's the GT-R emblem up front. There is a Nissan logo at the rear. This color is new for 2021. It's called Bayside Blue, and it reminds me of the color I visualize when I think of the R34 Skyline GT-R. These are 20-inch wheels. They're a really interesting design, and then behind them are these bronze brake calipers. You can see they say Nissan in Brembo right there. I believe these are 6-piston up front and then 4-piston at the rear. Another GT-R badge on the fender here. One thing I should add, as far as I can tell, every single vent on this vehicle is functional, unlike the vents on Toyota's flagship performance car. Moving down the side here, you can see it's got a black body kit. This is a premium trim level. There's also the Nismo trim, which costs almost twice as much as this, but the bulk of GT-Rs you see will be in this trim. Here's the rear. I love these taillights. Once again, they harken back to the R34 Skyline with a big circle on the outside and then a smaller circle in the middle. These exhaust tips are enormous. You can see they have a blue tint to them, and then diameter on these things is 5 inches, which is huge. You can see though that the actual exhaust pipe is a little bit smaller. There's some carbon fiber down here. I should add that the rear tires are wider than up front. So up front, you've got 255/40 around a 20-inch wheel. And then in the back, we're looking at 285/35. Spoiler's pretty tall without being too obnoxious. Like I said, there's a Nissan badge at the rear, and then there's another GT-R badge. I can't get enough of this blue, silver, and red color combo on this thing. It is so cool. The trunk release is way down low, so there it is. And you actually get a pretty sizable cargo hold. You can really only fit 2 people in the GT-R, but this thing could definitely hold all the luggage for 2 people, that's for sure. Not much else of note. There is a first aid kit there, and then it looks like some tie-down points, although they're probably best used with something like a cargo net, given that they're made out of plastic. There are 2 back here, and then 2 more at the opposite end there. Trunk lid is really lightweight. I believe this is aluminum. There is a brake light on the spoiler there. This is probably my favorite angle on the GT-R. I should mention the key is pretty basic. This is just a regular old Nissan key, although it does say GT-R there in place of the Nissan emblem. But you've got lock, unlock, trunk release, and panic, just like you would on an Altima. Door handles are a little weird. You lock them and unlock them via this button here. It's a passive keyless entry system, so the key's in my pocket. So lock, unlock, and then to actually open the door, you press on that end of the handle and then grab here and it pops open. A little bit easier to do with the left hand, I guess. Before we turn it on, here's a look at the window sticker. So this is a 2021 Nissan GT-R Premium. Total here is $121,040. EPA rates the GT-R at 16 city, 22 highway, and 18 combined. Like I said, under the hood is a 3.8 liter twin turbo V6, making 565 horsepower and 467 pound-feet of torque. That is sent to all 4 wheels via a 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. So this screen is pretty iconic as far as the GT-R goes. You can see it says Polyphony Digital there. That's the company that develops the Gran Turismo series, and Nissan actually commissioned them to design this interface here. So you've got all these different performance metrics here. So here is the first page. It's a boost gauge, engine oil temp, and then fuel economy. Over here you've got fuel range, engine oil pressure, and a torque meter. Move over more, you've got a G-force meter, a boost gauge, and a digital speedometer. This is probably the screen I would leave it on. Then here you've got temperatures. There's also boost, transmission oil pressure, and then some of the same things here. You can customize this screen, I believe. And then here you've got a lap timer with a speedometer and lap log and timer there. As far as this interior goes, it's pretty basic. Definitely doesn't stand out as exotic, and rather it's pretty conservative. You will notice some switch gear that's shared with other Nissan products. So like this lock unlock switch, I imagine you could find in like a 2010 Sentra. Same with the window buttons and the window locks. The steering wheel and gauge cluster are pretty interesting. So the tilt function is down here, and when you tilt the wheel, the entire gauge cluster tilts with it. It's also got a telescoping feature, but in that case, only the wheel moves. Moving over here, so Nissan did update this thing for 2017, and with that update, it got an entirely new dashboard, although a lot of the switch gear and things are the same. So like I said, this infotainment screen, aside from the performance metrics, it's pretty much just a mid-2000s Nissan infotainment system. You can control it via this dial down here. I haven't really used the dial too much, and you don't have to use the dial because you've got these arrows here. It's obviously dated, but it's actually not terrible. HVAC controls are pretty modern. They feel really good too. And that's something that was redesigned with that 2017 update. And then down here are your different performance features that can be adjusted. So here's transmission, suspension, and then VDS, which stands for Vehicle Dynamic Systems. So each one has an R mode. That's the most hardcore performance setting. And then to use launch control, you just have to have the transmission and the VDS in R mode. But you've also got, for the transmission, a save mode, which is for fuel economy. Suspension comes with a comfort mode. And then you can turn the vehicle dynamic system off in its entirety, but we're definitely not going to do that. Moving down, here's the engine start-stop button. It's very red. And then here's your gear selector. It's definitely a unique design. So we're in park right now. Press this button and go back for reverse, but you see when you go down to reverse, it pops over. To go to neutral, you just pull back. And then to go into drive, pull back again. And one thing about drive is it's actually just labeled A and M for automatic and manual, and this kind of functions as a button. So to go into manual mode, you just press over. So we're in manual, press again, we're in automatic. And then these paddle shifters are unique as well. So if you press the paddle shifter, you go into manual mode. But what's interesting about these paddle shifters is that they don't automatically go back into automatic mode. You're in permanent manual mode now, unless you press this over or press and hold on the paddle shifter, and it puts you back into automatic. Another unique thing, when you're in manual mode, the vehicle will not shift for you. It'll actually go up to the red line and then cut out. So that's a little bit different than other dual clutch automatic cars I've driven that have paddle shifters. But this strikes me as more being set up as a replacement for a manual transmission rather than other dual clutch automatics that are set up to kind of behave as both an automatic and a manual. Moving further down, we discussed the infotainment controls. This center console is all carbon fiber, I should add. It's kind of cool to see this large piece of carbon fiber making up the center console. Here you've got a regular old parking brake, and then cup holders with a lid. And then your center console storage bin is pretty small. You've got 2 USB ports, an aux port, and then a 12-volt outlet there. And then another thing, there's another 12-volt outlet right here. It's the first time I've seen placement like that for a 12-volt outlet. There is a second row, but it's really, really small. I mean, there is no leg room. Maybe a small child could sit back there if the passenger was willing to put their seat up a little bit. But beyond that, yeah, you really can't fit. I did climb back, and it was uncomfortably tight, both physically and mentally. Something I don't usually do, let's pop the hood because the engine bay is actually kind of interesting. Go ahead and turn it off though. So like I said, vents are functional. And then there you go. So there is the 3.8 liter V6 twin turbocharged. There's the name of the guy that built this engine. It's fun. And then the battery and the brake fluid live under those covers. There's the other end of those vents on the hood. They don't actually link up with anything. Rather, I think they just vent heat away from the engine. Oh, and one more thing. It says Premium Midship, which is Nissan's name for the GT-R's platform. It doesn't actually sound that great when it starts up. I don't get that. All right, driving a Nissan GT-R. So it's somewhat rough. Not like punishing, but it certainly isn't smooth. It's also a little bit loud. So the car doesn't like this little dip I drive into when I pull out here. So here's what we're gonna do. I come to a dead stop. There's no one coming behind me. Okay, 0 miles per hour. Okay, there's 50. So definitely quick. This thing was clocked at 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, which is ridiculous. A friend and I were driving around in the mountains and just using a stopwatch on his phone. We tried a bunch of different apps and the stopwatch worked best. We clocked it at 4 seconds flat, which is nuts. You never come that close to the manufacturer's quoted time when you're clocking a vehicle manually. But yeah, 4 seconds flat, according to someone's finger on the screen of an iPhone. So we're in just all basic modes right now. We're even in automatic. Go to manual here. So the red line on this car is really high. It's at about 7,000 RPM. And it also makes peak power pretty close to red line as well. So you really have to whine it out to get that kind of power out of it. Like we're just cruising along here at 2,500 RPM and it feels like any regular old vehicle. So I was hoping to get a red light launch, but the traffic lights aren't really cooperating. So we're gonna shoot up the canyon here, and I know of an area where we should have a place to play around in. So the big thing I've noticed about the driving experience with this vehicle is that it really doesn't come alive until you're pushing 90 or 100 miles per hour. So we're just cruising along here in 6th gear at about 2,300 RPM, and it's floored. It's honestly pretty tame below 80 miles per hour. And then once you get above 80, which I've done a couple times, then it really comes alive. The other thing is you can drop down into like 3rd gear when you're going 70. Then it really throws you back in your seat. But you really have to be pushing it to get the full force of these turbochargers. I really wish I had access to a racetrack. Okay, so I think we can do a launch right here. So I've got the transmission and the VDS button in R mode. We are going to come to a full stop. Launch control works just like it does in any other car that has launch control. You mash the brake and the gas at the same time, get the revs up, lift off the brake, and then the car will rocket off. So Sits at about 4,000 RPM. Jeez. Yeah. That was fast. And it was uphill. It's fast in the sense that your body moves forward, but your brain has a hard time processing how fast you're moving. So there's a momentary period where you're just kind of gone. It's really invigorating. The exhaust sounds good, but it's not the most emotive exhaust. I've driven like the Supra. It has a much cracklier exhaust. The exhaust in this one kind of reminds me of the Lexus LC 500. That's a vehicle that I wasn't expecting to be loud, but it was kind of loud and it was kind of characterful. This one, I kind of expected it to be a little bit more obnoxious than it really is. I generally try not to read reviews of the vehicles I'm reviewing, but given that this thing came out way back in 2008, I've read a few GT-R reviews over the past 13 years, and I kind of agree with most of them, how they've said that this thing really isn't as extreme a vehicle as you would expect it to be. Performance is there, it's ridiculously fast, it has tons of grip from this all-wheel drive system, the transmission shifts really quickly, but as far as that visceral experience, it's like this thing's almost too good. It's kind of unshakable, but it's also really cool for that reason. It's extremely well done. Okay, let's do one more launch here. So transmission and VDS are both in R mode. Left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas. There's 60. It's just ridiculously fast. That all-wheel drive system provides an insane amount of grip. I can't imagine there's any tire slippage on those takeoffs, and yeah, that's how you get a 0 to 60 time of 2.8 seconds. As far as handling goes, yeah, it feels really responsive. There isn't quite the connection between you as the driver and the front wheels as you might want, but at the same time it handles extremely well. Oh, there's some deer. Oh, $2. Look at that. And that's why we don't drive too fast. But the exhaust sounds pretty good. You can hear some kadunks on upshifts and downshifts. But yeah, I think the real theme with this car is you have to be driving it really, really hard and really, really fast to get the most out of it, compared to something like a Mazda Miata or even the new Toyota Supra. Both of those vehicles were fun at relatively low speeds. This thing, though, it doesn't kick in until you're going 80 and until the RPMs are at 5,000 or so. You're not getting a whole lot out of the turbochargers when you're just cruising along at 3,000 RPM. When you step on it, though, there the turbos go. Brakes work. Whoa. The brakes work really well, too. Oh, that was more jarring than launch control. Wow. And for the record, I just stopped. There wasn't anything in front of me. There wasn't a reason to stop. I just wanted to test the brakes. Yeah, this is a very digital feeling car. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, given that the people that designed Gran Turismo designed this performance screen here, that kind of gives you an idea of what this car is like. The interior is pretty heavy on black, a lot of right angles, pretty simple, pretty stark, really no nonsense. Yeah, that's kind of the GT-R in a nutshell. This thing has been pretty awesome. Another fun thing I've noticed is a lot of young people call it out when they see it on the street, which I don't think would happen with like a C8 Corvette or any kind of Porsche, just because the GT-R appeals to a younger audience than those cars. I don't know that it's really comparable to a six-figure car from, say, Mercedes AMG. This thing is much more raw feeling than something like, say, an E63 AMG. It's very purposeful, it's very intentional. This is a performance car that is meant to be driven fast, and I'm sure can handle a ton of abuse on a racetrack. I think that's it for the GT-R. Thanks for watching.